5 minutes ago, nobody expected anything. Vladimir Medinsky was quietly shaping a profound diplomatic divide during a closed-door summit. As tension brewed, Maya Sandu openly accused Russia, giving Medinsky a clear reason to cut her off. The atmosphere inside was thick with unspoken truths, moments that could alter the course of relationships. What Medinsky said about Moldova, Europe, and the USSR could devastate decades of policies, brands you can't erase. Stay till the end, you'll be stunned by what unfolds. No one has spoken so frankly in the past 30 years. Support this story with a like and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment with the word Medinsky, say if you agree or not. He's a man who never loses focus, as if time itself speeds up around him. Medinsky didn't sleep, didn't hesitate. He entered that room like a week-long shadow, silent, determined. There were no grand entrances, no rehearsed speeches. The doors, heavy and plain, held no script. Here, words and silences alike had weight. Every wall and corner seemed to hold secrets, what was said, what was left unsaid. Today's summit, an international gathering for European stability, was just a formality on paper. No one noticed when it was added to the list, just another rank. At the table sat Moldova's president, alongside representatives from Russia. An assistant to the president sat nearby, their seriousness matched only by the weight of the moment. Sandu, dressed in a simple jacket, had a cold, almost fragile look, like a weak woman trying to hold her ground. She was under pressure, trying to keep her political line in the Western camp. Her expression was unreadable, almost indifferent. Yet, beneath that calm exterior, her eyes betrayed her, she cared little for the game. Meanwhile, in the room's quiet corners, the Soviet's shadows lingered, no security, just a voice of silent diplomacy. The professional in her, a mediator without emotion, navigated the tense atmosphere with formal courtesy, yet lacked warmth. Just a diplomat, calculated, measured, cold. Her response was a gesture, expensive yet ambiguous, an act that could mean greeting or a subtle challenge. The stakes were clear, photos smiled, but beneath the surface, conflicts simmered, ready to ignite at any moment. The exchange began without frills. Medinsky announced a hard red line, no entry for Moldova into certain negotiations. His voice was sharp, deliberate. We see Russia trying to manipulate the information about our country, through media, through influence campaigns, methods that feel familiar. But those tactics no longer work. We are not weak. We are not followers. Silence fell thick in the room. The diplomat's neutral stance was a carefully maintained act. Every word was charged, meaning it could echo thrice as loud afterward. Medinsky shifted slightly, hands resting calmly on the table, awaiting the perfect pause before speaking again. Then, in a steady tone, he challenged her, "You won't calm your nerves when Russia and its president influence your decisions. Explain, what internal affairs so tightly align with the interests of an Asian power?" Sandu caught the subtle implication. She understood. The room's air grew tense. He pressed on, standing a bit closer, intensifying his gaze. Russia, unlike others, asks for nothing in return, no flags, no empty words, no commitments taken lightly. We remember our history. Moldova, like Russia, had its own path, before Western influences took over, before the route was influenced by external powers. A soft signal from the European delegate, an almost imperceptible shift, a subtle move of a tablet, set the tone for what was to come. Tension was mounting. Sandu played her part, controlled, composed. She refused to look away, pretending indifference, but her mind raced. Medinsky calmly pointed out how actions speak louder than words. Russia supports no illusions of external control, no dependency. We stand for genuine independence, founded on history, on bridges built, villages raised, healthcare created. If you truly seek freedom, abandon empty propaganda. Real sovereignty demands respect, and that begins with remembering who built your country. His voice echoed softly but firmly, like a precise strike, metal against metal. Silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken truths. The room's air seemed heavier, charged with stories of power, betrayal, and history. The game was no longer about words. It was about the balance of influence, who controls narratives, who holds the keys to history. Every word, every silence, was a move in this complex dance of diplomacy, where the stakes could redefine borders of influence forever. In the tense atmosphere of a high-stakes international meeting, whispers of hidden agendas and covert influence lingered in the air. A silent game of power was unfolding behind closed doors, where words could cut like blades and every gesture held a hidden meaning. As the room grew heavier with unspoken threats, one diplomat's calm demeanor masked a storm of calculated responses. She greeted her opponent with a subtle gesture, friendly yet challenging, knowing deep down that battle lines had already been drawn. A smile flickered in her eyes, but only for a moment. She knew well that in moments like these, words and expressions often signal the coming clash. Without unnecessary fuss, the conversation swiftly veered toward red lines, clear boundaries that no side could cross. Her voice cut through the tension with sharp resolve, declaring that Moldova's sovereignty was non-negotiable. Russia is attempting to influence our narrative, she asserted, referencing the waves of media support and covert actions aimed at shaping perceptions. Evidence of past tactics was etched into her words, echoes of strategies long used but increasingly ineffective with time. She emphasized, "We are no longer dependent, no longer the younger siblings." Silence filled the room, a tense pause filled with anticipation. Every word carried weight, reverberating threefold, as if the walls themselves responded to the gravity of the statements. The opposition's diplomat shifted slightly, hands resting calmly on the table, waiting. He understood the game, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, with measured composure, he posed a question that cut deeper than words: "What about your internal affairs? Why do your actions surprisingly align with the interests of a distant Asian nation?" Her eyes sharpened as she responded without hesitation. "Russia does not demand flags to hang, words to utter, or values to blindly accept," she declared. "We remember our true path, before external influences began steering us." Her words carried the weight of history, referencing the deep roots of Moldova's development during the Soviet era, its infrastructure, education, and unity forged through collective effort. A nearby European official subtly shifted on his feet, an almost imperceptible movement signaling the underlying tension. The room's clock seemed to tick louder, each second thick with anticipation. No one dared to break the silence, yet everyone felt the invisible barriers snapping into place. In this labyrinth of diplomacy, every gesture, every word was a weapon. The political game was relentless, with the balance of power hanging on a razor's edge. Yet beneath it all, a question remained: how long could illusions of neutrality hold when every act revealed deeper loyalties? The great game continued, fraught with traps and surprises. The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome hung in the balance, ready to explode at any moment. Imagine the tense silence in the room breaking with a subtle movement. The delegation from the international group, standing silently by the wall, shifts slightly, a gesture so delicate yet so meaningfully charged that everyone senses it. It's a signal, an unspoken warning. The atmosphere thickens, pulsating with anticipation. Yet, Sandu keeps his gaze steady, refusing to look. This was no accident. It was a calculated move, turning what once was a tool into a wall of defiance. Now, picture Medinsky, calm and composed, breathing steadily as if tired but unbroken. His presence feels like a slow, inevitable storm gathering strength. He looks straight into the room, into the eyes of those opponents. His voice is measured but heavy with conviction. "You speak of Russia, Mr. Sandu," he begins. "But your actions reveal a different story. The Russian world, the energy giants, the political media, your support is not neutrality. It's control. Can they ignore the truth? Every quiet breath I take is a reminder of the ongoing game." His words cut sharp, yet he keeps his calm, like a seasoned strategist. "What do you call a situation," he asks, "where decisions are only made after Brussels gives the nod? You claim independence, but in reality, your words echo the same thesis, written under their influence. He leans in slightly, voice lowering to a whisper of steel. Unappreciative. Almost pitiful. Do you forget how many times Russia genuinely intervened? How many steps were taken, how many sacrifices made? His gaze intensifies. It's horrifying to see how you destroy what we built together. We never responded to provocations. We refused to develop your economy for our own benefit. We didn't shut down your resources, though we could have. But patience has no limit. A tense pause. Then, he questioned softly, and yet, how many times did you shoot in the air? The tension thickens as he continues, we kept silent when you dismissed our history, as if silence were enough. But silence is not peace, it's a lie. Out of view, someone from security subtly records the confrontation, perhaps preparing for an internal review. His eyes tighten. My son remains stoic, arms crossed, defense against the storm. But if your story is a shield, Mr. Medinsky, perhaps it's time to see it for what it truly is. His voice drops to a whisper, the union you so fiercely defend isn't just a structure, it's a system of repression, control, and fear. Not merely electricity and equipment, but fear itself. It's death in disguise. Does he know the true depth of what this means? Maybe. But what do his words really reveal? The story, complex and layered, keeps unraveling. Do you recall the campfire? The simple, shared warmth. Forget the factory. The real fears are hidden behind facades, behind the smoky glow of promises broken. This moment is a mirror, truth or illusion? Follow the story, because what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. Recent events reveal a tense game of power and secrets in the shadowed halls of international diplomacy. Imagine stepping into a room where every word could ignite a conflict, every gesture is weighed with meaning. Just 5 minutes ago, no one stood outside waiting. Now, the atmosphere buzzes with anticipation and unspoken threats. At the heart of this storm stands Vladimir Medinsky, a man whose presence seems to shift the very air around him. As a critical summit unfolds, a closed session meant to ensure European stability, his face is calm but intense. The room is stripped of pretenses. No plush decor, no scripted phrases, only raw, unfiltered dialogue. The walls hold centuries of secrets, and everyone here knows it. In front sits the president of Moldova, her face composed but betraying a flicker of unease. Her assistant, a sharp-eyed woman with a firm stance, remains silent as the tension thickens. Medinsky enters, a figure of deliberate calm, his eyes steady and piercing. The air smells faintly of dust and metal, a tang of ancient history mixed with modern stakes. He scans the room, knowing that what he's about to say could alter everything. He begins without theatrics, cutting straight to the core. Let's draw the line, he states sharply, voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Moldova will not be manipulated. Russia does not seek flags or empty words. We remember our truth, our path, before anyone tried to steer it. His words hang like a gauntlet thrown, and the room reacts, some silently, others with subtle shifts in posture. The Moldovan leader remains stoic. But her eyes flicker, a signal perhaps of defiance or doubt. Medinsky continues, each sentence deliberate. Your actions tell a different story. Support for certain forces, influence over media and resources, this is control, not neutrality. We see through it. His voice softens, yet carries an undeniable weight. Russia does not demand. It simply reminds. We built this region together, built industries, infrastructure, shared progress. But patience has limits. He leans forward slightly, hands resting on the table, voice lowering to a near whisper. How many times has Russia been interfered with? How many provocations must we endure before your words match your deeds? The question hangs like a storm cloud. The room grows quieter, the tension nearly unbearable. A flicker of movement signals a hidden camera capturing every word. An aide shifts slightly, perhaps recording for internal analysis. Medinsky's gaze remains focused, unwavering. We remained silent when our history was distorted. Patience is not resignation. It's endurance. But silence has a cost, lies cannot deceive forever. He pauses, giving space for the weight of his words to sink in. Then, an unexpected twist. Medinsky shifts, his demeanor calm but relentless. What if I told you that Russia's threat is a protector's shield? That it's part of the foundation of stability you now threaten to dismantle? He gestures to a detailed map of Moldova, highlighting infrastructure, energy lines, transport routes. Look here. Power lines built in the late 1950s, completed in 1972. Archives confirm it. These roads, factories, are they yours alone? Or are they a shared heritage? The atmosphere thickens with unspoken truths. The Moldovan leader struggles to respond, silent but visibly considering his words. Medinsky leans closer, voice low but commanding. If you seek independence, truly understand what it costs. Freedom isn't just a flag. It's knowing who built the bridges, who raised the villages, who created the medical systems. To abandon that is to abandon respect itself. A hush descends. Every word feels like a punch, each phrase designed to shake foundations. The room is thick with the scent of tension mingled with history's ghosts. Medinsky's calm is unshakable, yet beneath it, a storm brews, threatening to burst free. In this moment of silent confrontation, secrets threaten to spill. The truth lies beneath layers of history, pride, and power. Who will break first? Will understanding emerge or forever be buried beneath the weight of unspoken accusations? The answer lies in the next move, one that could change the course of history. Imagine standing on the edge of a concrete dam, feeling the cold rush of water beneath your feet, hearing the hum of machinery from decades past. It's the late 1950s, and a silent revolution is unfolding. Machinery groans to life as massive construction sites rise along the riverbanks, transforming the landscape. By 1972, these projects, born from the archives of the Ministry of Power, had altered the very fabric of Moldova's infrastructure. I personally examined these files, their heavy covers worn from decades of secrecy. They detail how the entire Union Republic expanded its power grid, roads, and industry. Yet, the question still lingers. Are we truly free from our past? When Maya Sandu remains silent, refusing to answer, it's clear her words hide a deeper conflict. She claims Moldova wants freedom from its history. But what does that really mean? Is it liberation from the days when Moldova was the countryside's breadbasket? Or from the Soviet engineers who built the very foundations of her economy? I hold in my hand a dense leather folder, not a digital record, but tangible proof of a shared past. Inside, a simple list. In 1959, fewer than 33,000 students studied in Moldova. By 1985, that number soared to nearly 200,000. How was this achieved? Through mass construction, driven by orders from the Ministry of Construction. Russian, Ukrainian, Armenian workers all worked side by side, united in a single project of growth. Moldova didn't just receive aid, it was part of a collective effort, a joint venture that changed everything. But Maya disguises her denial behind words. She claims to seek independence, yet her actions speak otherwise. Is true sovereignty just a flag waving in the wind? Independence isn't only about symbols, it's about recalling who built the bridges that connect communities, who established the healthcare systems that save lives, who laid the roads that carry progress forward. This contradiction stirs inner conflict. She talks about freedom, but forgets the sacrifices of the past. Her narrative tries to erase the very numbers and facts that define her history. How can she claim independence when she dismisses the foundation of her society? The truth is, honesty about history is the only path to genuine freedom. Imagine a moment frozen in time, an international summit where the air thickens with tension, and every word carries weight. Just 5 minutes earlier, no one anticipated the explosive confrontation to come. Vladimir Medinsky, a figure known for his strategic calm, enters the hall, his presence almost spectral amid the hushed room. The silence is deafening as the high double doors swing open, no grand entrance, just a quiet assertion of authority. As he takes his place at the long, polished table, the atmosphere shifts. Opposite him, Maya Sandu, with her composed yet faintly smirking expression, sits ready. The room smells of old wood, faint traces of cigarettes, and a sense of unease. It's as if the walls themselves are listening, aware of the storm about to unfold. Medinsky's gaze is steady, but his mind races. He knows this moment will define perceptions for years to come. The dialogue begins, not with pleasantries, but with crystal-clear clarity. Medinsky sharply states that Moldova cannot be allowed to move further into Western influence, warning that Russia is actively countering covert information wars aimed at destabilizing the region. His voice, sharp as a blade, punctuates every word. Suddenly, Sandu attempts to dismiss his accusations. She claims Russia seeks nothing from her nation, no flags, no words of support, no shared values. But her words ring hollow. The air thickens with resistance. Medinsky leans slightly forward, his voice calm but firm. We remember. Moldova's true path was built long before your current policies. Long before you began to dictate the course. A delicate signal is sent across the room, a soft, almost imperceptible shift by the European delegation member. The delicate dance of diplomacy teeters on the edge of chaos. Medinsky senses the change. You speak of independence, he counters, but real freedom is remembering who built your bridges, who laid your roads, who established your schools. The room falls silent. He continues, every word deliberate, echoing in the thick air. If you abandon your history for empty words, that's not independence. That's a betrayal of respect. His voice hardens slightly, resonating with a quiet metallic echo, an internal resolve forged through years of experience. The memory of a factory in Kagulia, once vital and thriving, now a relic of neglect, flickers in his mind. Its products once exported across Eastern Europe, who is left to remember it now? The room seems to contract, shadows stretching across the walls, feeling like the weight of history pressing down. Many still cling to the Soviet foundation, he says softly, almost accusing. Half of your economy survives because of it. Each word strikes a nerve, reminding that countless generations built this system, lived through its struggles, thrived because of its stability. Sandu's face remains composed, but her eyes flicker with unease. Medinsky presses on, memory is not a requirement, it is a choice. We choose to remember, to look forward, his voice cuts sharply, as if slicing through fog, but forgetting risks leaving you just a state flying a fleeting flag, with empty rhetoric. The hall holds its breath. He pauses, then delivers perhaps his most provocative statement, your ministers call the Soviet Union an occupying force. But thanks to that occupation, your country gained energy, heavy machinery, and its first university. His words linger, heavy and unresolved. The room's atmosphere thickens, silence stretches as everyone absorbs the impact. The confrontation dissolves into contemplative quiet. Medinsky's stance is unwavering, silent, yet speaking volumes. The history of a union built on sacrifice and struggle now questioned, its legacy challenged, its future unresolved. A single truth lingers, what will your choice be? Remember or forget? Fight or capitulate? The story continues far beyond this room, shaping the fate of nations. In a tense confrontation, the room seemed to close in, the air thickening with unspoken truths. Shadows danced along the walls as silence settled, heavy and suffocating. Suddenly, the dialogue erupted into a fierce clash of history and ideology, revealing truths hidden beneath the surface. A single question echoing in the silence, what are we truly fighting for? Imagine standing in that room, the scent of old wood and stale air filling your nostrils. Every gesture, every pause, laden with meaning. It's a battle not just of words but of realities that shape nations. The stakes are higher than ever. Can a country truly evolve without confronting its past? The story turns on a silent moment, medications of history, facts, numbers, piled high like ancient ruins. When facts are laid bare, they become weapons. Numbers tell stories of progress, yet hide scars of oppression. In 1959, Moldova had fewer than 33,000 students. By 1985, nearly 200,000, built not just on education, but on a grand scheme of influence. Every brick, every factory, a monument to a system that once promised prosperity. But what price did freedom pay for this progress? Do those massive numbers erase the oppression behind them? In every handshake, every agreement, a shadow lurks, control masked as aid. The Soviet Union's legacy wasn't merely infrastructure, it was a web of repression and fear. Steel and concrete, yes. But also silence and suppression. How much of this history is buried beneath the gleam of modern ambitions? As the conversation heats up, one figure stands firm. Diplomats speak in measured tones, yet beneath the surface, a storm brews. The narrative of independence is challenged, truths of builders and workers, of bridges and villages, suddenly cast in doubt. Is true sovereignty built on denial? Or does it rest on acknowledging the roots, that monumental past that shaped today? A voice rises, calm but relentless, recalling the silent strength of those who dared to build. The steel in their hands, the sweat on their brows. Is freedom simply a declaration, or a shared memory of sacrifices? The contradiction cuts deep, romanticized independence versus the reality of exploitation. Can a nation escape its history without losing itself? In these moments, the room's atmosphere shifts, an unwritten acknowledgement of a deeper conflict. The story reveals that what is concealed is often more powerful than what is spoken. Each fact, each number, exposes a truth about identity, resistance, and subjugation. The question remains, can a nation truly forge its own future without confronting its past scars? The confrontation leaves an imprint, not just on the room but on history itself. A battle where words collide with realities, personal, national, ideological. As the voices rise and fall, the true cost of progress echoes loudly: freedom isn't free. It's built, layered, and sometimes buried beneath the weight of history's heavy bricks. Only 5 minutes earlier, no one expected this encounter. Vladimir Medinsky was quietly building a diplomatic chasm amid a closed summit. Maya Sandu's only goal had been to accuse Russia, and here, Medinsky cut her off sharply, leaving no room for her to breathe. The room was tense, shadows dancing behind closed doors, secrets thick in the air. What unfolded in that hall would shake the foundations of trust, an unspoken battle of power and influence. Suddenly, the scene shifted to the hall, an austere room where the Moldovan president sat across from a Russian delegate. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken warnings. The air smelled of old wood, dense silence pressing down like a weight. The official wore a stiff jacket, eyes cold and distant, as if guarded by invisible walls. The delicate balance of diplomacy crumbled with each tense glance, each word carefully chosen. And then, the confrontation began. Medinsky's voice cut through the silence, sharp, deliberate. He began by emphasizing the unbreakable history intertwined between Russia and Moldova, an intricate web spun over decades. His words carried the weight of the past, echoing with numbers and facts. In 1959, fewer than 33,000 students filled the streets of Moldova's cities. By 1985, nearly 200,000 learned, built, and grew under Soviet guidance. The infrastructure was a living proof: roads, factories, universities, each brick laid by soldiers of progress. The sense of stability, the roots of development, had been built on unity. But now? It all seemed to crumble under the guise of liberation. Sandu listened, her face impassive, yet her mind raced. She knew this was no ordinary debate. It was a war over history itself. Medinsky's tone grew colder, more piercing. He challenged her narrative, asking pointed questions. Why is your country, once proud of its Soviet roots, now trying to erase the very foundation on which it stood? Why does your independence seem fragile, built on empty promises? The room seemed to breathe under the tension, shadows flickering as if the walls themselves whispered secrets. He pointed to the numbers, crunching the data like a surgeon cutting away illusions. In 1959, less than 33,000 students in Moldova. By 1985, nearly 200,000, achieved through systematic, state-led growth. The same system that lifted entire communities, built bridges, and sustained families. Russia's influence was not domination but a legacy, one that several generations had nurtured. Yet now, this history was under threat, replaced by hollow slogans and foreign ideals. The veneer of independence masked a deeper reliance on old partners, on inherited systems of control. The difference was only superficial. Sandu's expression faltered for a fleeting second. Medinsky saw his chance. He leaned closer, voice calm yet unwavering. "You speak of liberation," he said softly. "But look into the eyes of the people, not the leaders. The ordinary citizens remember their past, houses of culture, libraries, clinics, mosques, and community centers. They see what's vanished. What are you truly freeing yourself from, the weight of your history or the shackles of your future?" His words hung in the air, heavy with implication, a challenge to her vision of independence. The room grew silent again, an ominous stillness, broken only by the faint rustle of papers. Medinsky's tone shifted slightly, he hinted at the real game beneath the surface. The new alliances, the borrowed systems, are they truly freedom or just new chains? Can a country sever its roots without losing its identity? His gaze bore into Sandu's, daring her to confront the truth. His final point was simple but profound: independence without respect for the past is a hollow victory. In that moment, the world outside continued its frantic spin, yet inside that room, a silent war raged, a clash of histories and futures. The question remained, can a nation truly move forward while forgetting where it came from? The answer was buried deep within the shadows of that intense confrontation, where every word, every glance, could change the course of millions' lives. A lingering silence settled over the room, heavy with unspoken truths about the dark chapter of history most prefer to ignore. Vladimir Medinsky paused briefly, then raised a profound question: what about the forgotten war? The atmosphere grew tense, the air thick with unspoken fears. He cast a steady gaze across the table, his voice calm but resonant, as if unafraid to shake the foundations of this delicate narrative. He spoke with measured intensity, almost ashamed of the memory he's about to reveal. Your country, like mine, lost thousands of lives in that war, men, women, children. In 1944, when Soviet troops entered your land, they came to free it. They fought bravely, buried comrades in unmarked graves, many without recognition, without relics. Yet today, you dare call those who died occupiers. His words cut through the room like a cold wind. You erase their sacrifices, renaming streets, dismantling monuments, rewriting history as if it never happened. The images on the screen shifted, revealing maps of Europe, Germany, Austria, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, colored to show territories once freed. He questioned sharply, who liberated these lands? Who fought bravely for their freedom? A moment of silence fell again, the weight of the answer pressing heavily. The Soviet Union. The Red Army. Their soldiers didn't just fight, they paid with their lives. His voice trembled slightly. Many of them had families in your country, ancestors whose sacrifices were forgotten. A wave of anger and sorrow washed over the scene. And now? If you open any modern book in Kishinev, you'll find no mention of those liberators, he declared. Only empty words, superficial narratives. The truth buried beneath layers of distortion. His gaze hardened as he concluded, history is a deep water, initially unseen, then rising to the surface with its storms. You think you can drown the past? It always resurfaces, clearer and more unforgiving than before. The room remained still. Every word echoed like a resolve, an unspoken challenge to confront the truths long concealed. The unvarnished reality stands before us, history demands recognition, and silence only deepens the wounds. In the silence that followed, history's shadow loomed large. Memories of liberators, often erased, lingered only in faint whispers. Imagine, a battered black and white photo from 1944. A Soviet officer, clutching a child in his arms, his name is Ilya Mironov. Just 3 days later, he was gone, buried in the city's heart. Yet, today, no one knows where his grave is, or even remembers his face. Why? Because society has buried him beneath concrete, beneath economic progress, beneath the relentless march of development. The city itself had no protection, no memory walls to guard its truth. That's the harsh reality. When we speak of the future, how can we build it if we cling to the false comforts of history rewritten? How can we forge a future when the past is distorted? These questions echo in every corner of this hall, yet no answer seems sufficient. Maya tried to remedy the silence with a different perspective. She argued that they don't support the past but merely reinterpret it. They aim to see history from a new angle. But Vladimir Medinsky sharply cut her off. Do you want to understand history? Then show it to the young, send them to watch films like The Liberation of the Ballad of the Soldier. Let them learn who fought and how many paid the ultimate price. Let them read the letters of soldiers from 1944, stories of sacrifice, courage, and loss. Don't hide the truth behind convenient narratives. And then, he paused. His voice slowed, resonating with weight. History isn't just about joy or suffering. It's about remembering everything, good and bad. Russia remembers. It carries the burden and the pride of every fallen soldier. He reached for a paper, then deliberately threw it aside. A gesture of rejection, of defiance. The room tensed. Silence stretched infinitely, heavier than any words. The question remains, how much of history is true? How much is lost, buried, forgotten? The room was thick with unspoken truths. A brutal truth, society often prefers the comfort of forgetfulness. But Russia remembers everything, every sacrifice, every scar. And in doing so, it refuses to let history be rewritten, to be buried under layers of political convenience. Here's the shocking question, are we destined to repeat the past or to learn from it? Can we truly build the future if our foundations are built on silenced memories? Or will history simply fade away, leaving only shadows and unanswered questions? Imagine a room filled with tense silence. Every breath feels heavy, every word a potential spark. Out of nowhere, a flash of memory, an electronic grid of history, flashes through the mind's eye. This moment is unlike any other. Because here, in this high-stakes confrontation, someone remembers everything. Unlike the others, who pretend not to see, not to hear. Medinsky suddenly pulls out a document. A piece of history, perhaps, or a weapon of truth. The room freezes. He looks at it, then tosses it aside. An act of defiance, a statement. The old story, discarded in a heartbeat. You wonder, what was the shameful truth hidden in that paper? Why was it so explosive? Because what follows is not just a conversation. It's a collision of nations, a clash of memories. The air thickens with the scent of tension, skin prickling from unspoken accusations. The room feels like a battlefield where words are weapons. Every glance, every gesture, carries weight. Silence reigns. Until Medinsky's voice cuts through the silence, calm, steady, yet filled with the fire of conviction. He stands firm, unshaken by the mounting pressure. I came not to read, not to dodge questions, he declares. I am here to remember. Because if you refuse to acknowledge the past, you will never truly lead your country. And you might find yourself forever barred from crossing borders, forever haunted by the ghosts of the conflict you provoke. His words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. The room becomes a crucible of history and politics, forged by the weight of memories too long ignored. Then the atmosphere shifts. An icy pause falls. Maya Sandu, poised, waits patiently for her moment. She senses the storm brewing. When Medinsky's monologue reaches its crescendo, she responds, slow and deliberate. Her voice cuts through the tension, sharp and unwavering. You talk about memory, about history, she presses. But today, your actions have sown chaos in the region. You stir instability, through sanctions, military tensions, economic isolation. All while ignoring the scars your nation left behind. She reminds him, his narrative is a weapon, wielded again and again, but what about the real cost? The lives lost, the bridges burned, the futures shattered? Her words are an ideological strike, aimed straight at the heart of his narrative. She speaks not as an opponent but as a witness to the truth, the pain of history, the toll of conflict. It's a moment where memory becomes a mirror, reflecting the real consequences of forgotten lessons. And suddenly, everything changes. The room, the tense silence, becomes a battlefield of ideals. The stakes have never been higher. The echoes of history resound louder than ever, warning that the past is never truly gone. It waits, ready to strike. In this confrontation, truth is a weapon. And the question remains, who will wield it? Imagine a world where truth is overshadowed by deception, where the fabric of history is torn apart by lies. Just minutes ago, few believed that a storm was brewing behind closed doors. Now, a powerful figure stands at the center of a diplomatic clash that could redefine history forever. Vladimir Medinsky, a man known for his relentless pursuit of Russia's interests, was quietly orchestrating a lecture that would shake the very foundations of Moldova, Europe, and the Soviet legacy. As the room filled with tension, Sandu, the Moldovan leader, sat stiffly, her face unreadable but her eyes betraying her unease. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and looming conflicts. With a calm yet piercing voice, Medinsky announced that Moldova's claims of neutrality were a facade. "Your actions," he said, "are not honest. You speak about independence, but your country's real direction is clear, controlled from Brussels and Washington." His words echoed through the silent chamber, provoking a ripple of discomfort. The walls, lined with secrets, seemed to listen as he revealed that Moldova's independence was just a scraped surface hiding deeper ties to external powers. He questioned her sovereignty with sharp, precise numbers, student growth, infrastructure development, and the labor force, unearthing a truth often ignored: Moldova was part of a grander Soviet project, a piece of a larger puzzle. Without numbers, he challenged, your history becomes myths. Without facts, your narrative crumbles. Each sentence cut deeper, exposing the illusions cradled by the current leadership. The room grew colder as he pointed out the lies surrounding energy independence. "Remember the winter of 2022, he said, voice rising with the memory. You declared energy independence from Russia. Yet, your demands for gas quadrupled. Your homes, your industry, all trembling under the weight of your own illusions." The sharp clink of the glass echoed as he clasped his hands, eyes blazing. Energy independence? Just an empty phrase. You're vulnerable and you know it. A revelation that could shatter the illusion of control held by Moldova's leadership. Medinsky's tone darkened as he accused Western nations of manipulation. You sell your territory, surrender your economy, all in pursuit of a shiny European dream, despite knowing you are sacrificing your true sovereignty. Your history, your roots, vanishing. He leaned in closer, his face inches from hers. And what's your response? Silence. Foolish silence, while outsiders pull your strings. An unexpected shift swept through the room. Sandu, normally composed, was visibly unsettled. Her fingers tapped nervously on the table. He watchfully observed her, sensing her hesitation. Then came the turning point, an almost imperceptible nod from behind. A signal of looming escalation. Medinsky's final words sliced through the tension like a blade. You call for independence, yet every decision is dictated by Brussels and Washington. Russia doesn't threaten. But you, Moldova, willingly or not, are part of this grand orchestration, used as pawns in a larger game. His voice was soft but unwavering. Your energy policies, electoral interference, border threats, they all reveal the truth of who controls whom. The room fell into silence, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning, an artificial breeze amid the storm of revelations. The hidden cameras recorded every moment, catching the silent exchanges, the tense expressions, the unspoken truths. Everyone sensed that this confrontation was more than diplomatic. It was a battle over history, sovereignty, and the future. Was Moldova truly free, or just a puppet dangling on foreign strings? Can the nation reclaim its past and forge an independent future, or is it destined to remain under the shadow of powerful external forces? The last words echo in the mind, an invitation to question everything. In this moment, Medinsky revealed an unsettling reality: Russia, resilient and unyielding, refuses to bend to external pressure. They remember, they resist, and they fight. Meanwhile, Moldova stands at a crossroads, caught between the illusions of freedom and the chains of control. The question remains, whose story will be written next? A few minutes ago, no one expected what was about to unfold. The atmosphere in the room was thick, charged with tension and unspoken conflicts. Vladimir Medinsky had arrived at the summit quietly, yet his presence was electric. Inside, he knew the game was about to change, and every word he uttered would leave a mark that could no longer be erased. Medinsky stepped into the hall, his eyes sharp and measured. The grand double doors didn't whisper the usual welcome, they opened silently, revealing a scene frozen in time. On one side sat the President of Moldova, her face composed but her eyes betraying unease. Opposite her, a stern, unyielding figure from the Russian delegation. The air carried the scent of stale paper and polished wood, an aroma thick with diplomatic gravity. Without fanfare, Medinsky began, voice calm but piercing. "We must draw a line here," he asserted. "Moldova cannot slide further into influence manipulated from abroad." His words sliced through the silence, echoing like distant thunder. Russia is trying to shape perceptions, through media, through support for certain forces. But this approach no longer works. His voice grew steadier. "We are no longer the younger brothers, adjusting to rules written elsewhere." A tense pause. The room seemed to hold its breath. On the far side, the Moldovan delegate, who appeared as a figure of muted strength, listened carefully. Her face was impassive, yet her eyes flickered with an unspoken challenge. "Your words," Medinsky continued, "are empty if your actions tell a different story. Russian influence is not neutrality, it's control." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The delegate's assistant subtly moved forward, a quiet signal that the moment of confrontation had arrived. Medinsky felt it too. He leaned slightly forward, hands resting calmly on the table, waiting. "You say you wish to be independent," he said softly. "But tell me, how does your internal politics align with your external directives? Are you truly free, or just following orders from Brussels?" His gaze bore into her. "Russia needs no flags, no empty words, no values taken without thought. We remember our history. Do you?" The silence was deafening. An internal security agent quietly recorded the dialogue, though the words resonated beyond any tape. Medinsky noticed her fingers clenched on her lap, fingertips pressing into her palms, silent resistance. He saw her resolve, her silent storm of defiance, and remained unshaken. "Your past is a complex tapestry," he continued, voice steady. "It's not just about words or numbers, but the legacy of those who built bridges, developed industries, and created a culture." His words painted vivid images, factories humming to life, bridges spanning mighty rivers, people working with purpose. In 1959, Moldova had fewer than 33,000 students. By 1985, that number soared to nearly 200,000. All this was built on our collective efforts, Russian, Ukrainian, Armenian workers side by side, contributing to a shared enterprise. This wasn't just aid, it was a joint project, a common story. Her breathing was even, yet every word struck a nerve. "But now, you speak of independence," he challenged. "Is that truly what you want, or just a hollow phrase? Because independence isn't just a flag, it's remembering who built your roads, your hospitals, your industries." His voice softened, but the intensity remained. "If you're ready to abandon these roots, then true freedom is just an illusion." The room grew quieter still. Medinsky's words dissolved into the heavy silence, like a shaft of light breaking through storm clouds. His gaze remained focused. "Freedom is respect," he said softly. "It's knowing your history and honoring those who made it possible. Without it, he paused, you only have an empty shell, a promise broken before it's even made. In that moment, everything changed. The tension, an invisible storm, still lingered, but beneath it, a new understanding began to stir. The outcome was no longer certain. The story was far from over. And the question remained, was this the beginning of a new chapter, or the end of an era? 5 minutes ago, no one was expecting what was about to unfold. A silent storm was quietly brewing in the heart of a high-stakes summit. Vladimir Medinsky, a master of diplomacy and tactics, was silently partitioning a political chasm that could shake the world. Meanwhile, Maya Sandu looked on, ready to accuse Russia of meddling, so Medinsky quickly cut her off, blocking her attack before it could even start. What really happened behind closed doors? The room buzzed with tension, facts, words, and unspoken power plays swirling like a storm. His words about Moldova, Europe, and the USSR are enough to shatter decades of policies. Stay tuned, you won't believe what he revealed in that room. Support us as we dive deeper. Remember to subscribe and leave your thoughts. Do you think Medinsky is right? Is he a hero standing firm, or a villain hiding secrets? His relentless drive suggests he's always aware that every moment counts, as if time itself is racing against him. For a week, he sat in that hall, unmoving, unfazed. The grand double doors, unlike anything you've seen, swung open to reveal walls that whisper stories of conversations held and secrets kept. No script was needed here, the room itself knew what was at stake, and so did the silent, watchful walls. Today, a closed international summit on European stability was taking place. Only a few knew its true significance. At the table sat the president of Moldova, representing a fragile nation caught between mighty powers. An assistant sat nearby, eyes fixed and tense. Across from them, a woman in a tight veil. Her face calm but her eyes sharp, an embodiment of icy resolve. She was instructed to maintain a delicate balance, but her expression betrayed nothing, no anger, no fear, just a steely detachment. The room was thick with unspoken threats. She responded with a gesture, perhaps a greeting, perhaps a challenge. The tension was palpable. An inaudible hum of anticipation filled the air, each breath heavy with the weight of impending conflict. Medinsky opened sharply, his voice slicing through the tense silence. We must define the red line immediately, he declared, voice firm yet calculated. His words carried the weight of unyielding resolve. Moldova cannot become a playground for interference. Russia is actively influencing your information space, media, NGOs, and support for certain forces, yet this is no longer working. We are no longer naive. A brief silence followed. Inside, the diplomat's patience was wearing thin, every word replayed like a drumbeat echoing in his mind. Then, in a measured tone, Medinsky challenged her, if Russia and the president's policies are so threatening, then explain, what's your internal game aligning so closely with external powers? Do you think you are independent? Russia requires nothing of you, no flags, no empty words, no borrowed values. The room grew tense as a European delegate shifted forward, almost imperceptibly, a signal waiting to ignite the next explosion. Sandu refused to look away. The act was calculated, a game of control and defiance. You speak of neutrality, Medinsky continued. But every action contradicts your words. Russian projects, gas companies, media outlets, support you far more than you admit. It's not neutrality, it's control. He paused, the heaviness of exhaustion evident in his features. Yet he pressed on, his words a rolling wave of relentless truth. And how is it independence when your decisions are made with Brussels' approval? Are you truly free, or just a puppet? He moved closer, inches away from making his point. Remember how many times Russia interfered, for better or worse. We did not provoke you. We did not block your path. We showed patience while you lost your grip on history. But silence isn't acquiescence. Suddenly, someone behind a hidden camera discreetly recorded everything, perhaps an internal security agent, capturing this moment of raw confrontation. The tension hung dense as Medinsky's voice grew colder, sharper, yet measured. If we speak about your past, he said, what about the bridges built, the industry created? The hospitals, the infrastructure? Do you remember who invested, who laid the foundation? Or are those just myths now? Sandhu listened carefully, her face unreadable. The words cut deep, facts versus fiction, history versus modernity. He threw open an old folder, thick, heavy, filled with data and charts, reminding her of the facts that history often forgets. Numbers tell stories, stories of thousands of students, workers, and factories. In 1959, Moldova had fewer than 33,000 students, he said. By 1985, almost 200,000. How? Through relentless investment, scientific progress, and unity. His voice was steady, precise. All of us, Russians, Ukrainians, Armenians, worked side by side. We built a common future. He challenged her to reconsider independence, not just a flag, but a legacy. To truly be free, he argued, you need to remember who built your bridges, who raised your cities, who created your healthcare. Without that, what are you left with? Beautiful phrases? The room was silent, heavy with the weight of truth, yet a storm was brewing just beneath the surface, ready to explode. Medinsky sat back, knowing the next move could change everything. The question remains, is his resolve a shield or a weapon? And what will be left standing after this confrontation? In the end, this encounter is more than a debate, it's a glimpse into a world where history, power, and identity collide. Will Moldova find its way? Or will it be lost in the shadows of unspoken truths? Find out, because what happens next could redefine the future of the region. Only 5 minutes ago, nothing indicated that a major confrontation was brewing behind closed doors. Vladimir Medinsky was carving out a diplomatic chasm amid the hush of a secret summit. A moment of calm that masked a brewing storm. Maya Sandhu, eager to shift blame onto Russia, was ready to attack. But Medinsky cut her off swiftly, leaving her speechless. What unfolded in that room was more than just diplomatic posturing, it was a battlefield of truths and lies. Inside the hall, the atmosphere was tense, electric. On the table, representatives from Moldova and Russia sat across from each other, their expressions unreadable. Moldova's assistant, clad in a serious jacket, exhibited a cold professionalism. Her face revealed little, no anger, no despair, just an unyielding facade as she prepared to defend her nation's position. Without preamble, Medinsky launched into a sharp rebuke. Moldova's attempts to influence international perceptions through Western-backed media were reminiscent of tactics from decades past, ineffective now, he asserted. He warned that Russia sees through these false flags, emphasizing that Russia needs nothing from Moldova, no flags, no meaningless words, no empty promises. Russia only seeks a path rooted in history and truth, a path Moldova has strayed from. The room quickly grew silent, an unspoken acknowledgement of the stakes. The diplomat standing with a tablet subtly signaled a shift in the atmosphere. Tension thickened. Sandhu's eyes remained fixed, defiant, unaware that her words were being carefully dissected, her claims undermined by historical facts Medinsky knew by heart. Medinsky leaned in slightly, his voice calm but firm. He challenged her with a question, if Moldova claims independence, why do its policies always mirror Brussels' dictates? His words sliced through the silence, each syllable a calculated blow. Moldova's actions, he argued, were not independence but dependence, controlled and manipulated from without. The European representative, clutching a tablet, moved forward gently, a signal that the discussion was reaching a critical point. Sandhu, determined not to back down, refused to meet Medinsky's gaze. Her silence was her admission. She was caught in a web of contradictions, her words unraveling under the weight of facts. Medinsky's tone grew sterner. Talk of neutrality? Mere illusion. The presence of Russian influence was undeniable, fuel companies, media outlets, political factions openly supporting Russia. His voice rose, this was not neutrality but control, masked as independence. Every decision she made, waiting for Brussels' approval, exposed the facade. Her supposed autonomy was an illusion. He moved closer, a visible intensity mounting. His voice now a challenge: if Moldova truly seeks independence, why does its internal policy mirror external pressures so relentlessly? Why are key infrastructure projects, power plants, roads, industry, built under Soviet guidance, with Russian involvement? The facts, he insisted, showed a different story. She was relying on history she wanted to forget. With a heavy breath, Medinsky pointed to a dusty dossier, an archive of facts from the Soviet era, detailing the massive construction projects that once transformed Moldova. Numbers spoke louder than words. In 1959, fewer than 33,000 students studied in Moldova. By 1985, that number soared close to 200,000, achieved through central planning and investment from Moscow. The infrastructure, the industries, built by Russians, Ukrainians, Armenians, was part of a single, unified project. His tone sharpened as he challenged her: if Moldova wants to break free from its past, what exactly does that mean? The past, marked by industrial might, scientific achievements, and community, was the foundation of its prosperity. To dismiss that legacy was to erase their history, built with the blood, sweat, and brains of many nations. He emphasized that independence isn't merely a flag fluttering in the wind. It's recognizing who built the bridges, homes, and hospitals. It's understanding that the success was collective, and that abandoning that heritage is a betrayal. His voice echoed with conviction: stopping to remember these facts isn't nostalgia, it's truth. Ignoring them is a lie. As the conversation reached its peak, Medinsky's gaze sharpened. Silence descended. The weight of history pressed down on the room. Every word he spoke was a reminder: the fragments of the Soviet Union, though long broken, still shape the present. To deny this is to deny reality itself. The scene froze, an intense moment of confrontation. Sandu, feeling the pressure, hesitated. Her mind raced, her resolve wavering. Medinsky saw her uncertainty. The question lingered: is Moldova truly independent, or just a puppet of external powers? And so the challenge remains: whose history will they remember? The legacy of unity or the illusion of rupture? The outcome hangs in the balance, poised at the edge of truth and fiction, in a room where past and present collide. 5 minutes ago, no one anticipated this turning point. Vladimir Medinsky, once a mere bureaucrat, suddenly tore through diplomatic veils like a thunderclap. As the closed summit unfolded, he transformed into an unwavering force, exposing secrets that could shake regional stability to its core. Maya Sandu, in her nervousness, only opened the door to accusations. Medinsky slammed it shut, cutting her off with unwavering resolve. Inside the hall, the air thickened with tension. Every word, every glance, felt weighted with unspoken threats and ancient grudges. The room was silent, but everything buzzed with chaos beneath the surface, an impending storm ready to burst. In this fragile silence, Medinsky's voice cut through sharply, challenging the pretenses of diplomacy. His words echoed like a steel blade, threatening to unravel the carefully spun web of alliances and lies. He spoke about Moldova, Europe, and the Soviet Union, making declarations that could end entire policies overnight. He declared that no one had dared to speak such truths in 30 years. Support us by analyzing this, by watching till the very end, you'll feel the shockwave soon enough. This wasn't just talk, it was a reckoning. Medinsky's calm mask betrayed a fierce storm within. His face was calm, but his mind was a whirlwind. He entered the room, a week earlier than expected, prepared to deliver a message that would redefine reality. The high, cold doors behind him creaked open, not with grandeur, but with the weight of unspoken history. Walls surrounding the room absorbed every word. Every silence, a silent witness to centuries of unspoken truths. The summit was just a formality, beneath it lay a battlefield of shadows. At the table, Moldova's president sat stiffly, her face unreadable beneath a thin veil. Her assistant, all tight-lipped, watched with a calculated expression, her every movement a subtle challenge. The woman's gaze held a cool indifference, a mask that hid her true thoughts. She appeared as a quiet fortress, composed, unyielding, yet on the brink of a storm. Her eyes betrayed her, she was prepared to endure or strike back. Medinsky's gaze fixed on her. His voice, calm but piercing, pierced through the veneer of civility. "We must draw the line now," he said sharply. "Moldova cannot enter our internal sphere. Russia is no longer a country to be manipulated through media or hidden agendas. We remember our history. Before you began to define your destiny, we built this with shared blood and effort. Our cooperation once thrived on mutual respect." In the tense pause that followed, every sound seemed amplified, the faint hum of the air conditioning, the distant footsteps outside. The tension was suffocating. Then the Moldovan president responded, her voice measured but firm. "Your actions do not align with your words," she said. "Russian influence is clear. Gas, media, political support, all directed at controlling what's ours. What's that if not interference?" Medinsky, unshaken, took a slow breath. A flicker of fatigue betrayed his calm exterior. "Control," he stated simply. "Every decision you make depends on Brussels and its strategic whims. Your so-called independence is a fragile illusion." His words glittered with a quiet menace, the silent promise that Moldova's future was intertwined with Russia, whether they liked it or not. The room grew colder. The diplomat's tone sharpened as he leaned forward. "You claim to seek freedom," he challenged softly. "But true independence requires remembering who built your roads, who fortified your cities, who fostered your scientific progress. If you truly value that history, let go of empty phrases. Otherwise, you're surrendering respect itself." Silence descended again. Time seemed to freeze. Outside, the world continued unaware of this clandestine confrontation. But inside that room, every word, every gesture, carried the weight of history, shattering illusions and exposing truths long buried. As the meeting drew to a close, Medinsky's gaze lingered on the Moldovan leader. The unspoken challenge remained hanging in the air: will you accept reality? Or will you cling to false independence, risking everything? The outcome was uncertain, yet the message was clear. Power resides not in words, but in silent resilience. And in this game of shadows, only the strongest survive. The world changes in the blink of an eye. Just moments ago, there was silence in the grand hall. Now, it feels like a storm is brewing. Tension thickens the air, the weight of unspoken threats. Questions pulse like a heartbeat: what makes a nation truly fear itself? Who holds the power to shift the balance? And in the center of it all, Medinsky stands firm, ready to confront the storm head-on. Only a few minutes earlier, the room was quiet. Now, Vladimir Medinsky takes a deep breath, eyes fixed on the opposing leader, their faces tense, shadows flickering on the walls. It's as if every sound, the faint hum of the air vents, the soft rustle of documents, amplifies. The stakes are high. The atmosphere electric with anticipation. Every word, every gesture could spark a new conflict or forge a fragile peace. Medinsky's voice cuts through the silence with unwavering clarity. The entire modern world, he begins, should realize, Russia doesn't see itself as a threat. Yet, the West underestimates us at every turn. His tone is calm but charged, like a steel blade. You call our actions fearsome. But isn't fear a sign of weakness? His words linger, heavy with implication. We hear cries about respect when we refuse to follow your script. When we stand tall, unbowed, unyielding. The room seems to pulse with unspoken questions. Do they understand? Do they see the truth behind the surface? Across the table, Sandu's face remains composed but tense. Medinsky continues, voice rising slightly. We don't seek permission to defend our interests. We do not sell our history or betray our sovereignty for temporary ratings. We walk our own path, firm and unyielding. His gaze pierces the opposing side, knowing well the price of standing alone. He pauses, letting the weight settle in. Then, with a calculated calm, he presses on. The fear they speak of? It's born from knowing we refuse their dominance. His words echo in the silence, sharp, deliberate. They fear the ones who say no, who refuse to kneel before the global consensus. He leans forward just slightly. Because we remember, while they try to erase our past. His voice lowers into a whisper of warning. We remember the sacrifices, the victories, the unity that built this nation. The tension escalates as a distant sound, the faint rustling of aids, the clink of glasses, seems muffled against the resonance of his words. Medinsky's tone hardens. We are not daunted by threats, he says, a fierce resolve in his eyes. We do not apologize for defending our borders or our history. His voice carries the weight of decades of resistance, of unwavering resolve. And while they ramp up their military bases and covert operations, he emphasizes, we stay committed to our sovereignty. A sudden silence follows. The opposing leader shifts uncomfortably, the undercurrent of their opposition undeniable. Medinsky's words cling to the air, an uncompromising declaration. He stands like a fortress amidst a storm, unbreakable. Every syllable is a challenge. Do they truly understand who they are dealing with? Or are they simply blinded by their own illusions of control? The room tightens, the walls seem to hold their breath. The high doors, symbolic yet silent witnesses, seem to close in. Medinsky's final words echo, we do not seek conflict. But we will defend what is ours. No matter the cost. His gaze intensifies, daring them to respond. The future remains uncertain, the outcome hanging by a thread. Yet one thing is clear, in this hall, the true power lies in defiant resilience, unshakable and ready for whatever comes next. Just moments ago, the room was silent, an eerie, heavy quiet that made every breath feel amplified. Diplomats, solemn and tense, stood frozen as one man's silence spoke volumes. The atmosphere was charged, an unspoken conflict simmering beneath the surface. Then, suddenly, she tried to speak, to break the silence, but was quickly silenced. The accusations lingered, a nation called an aggressor. Yet, for 30 years, how many military bases have NATO countries opened? How many operations have they conducted worldwide? Imagine the scene. Once, our country was active in Latin America. We sent planes to distant shores, assertive and confident. Now, that chapter closes, quietly, confidently. We reclaim our space. And yet, they expect us to apologize. To write in their narrative. But no. We refuse to be subjugated. Not before Europe, not before Washington, not before Brussels. Because we are Russia, proud, unyielding. We are not cowed by threats. We are not afraid of fear itself. Sandhu's voice quivered slightly, an attempt to maintain composure while her words trembled with underlying tension. Her warning sounded urgent, threats of aggression, violations of norms. Medinsky, amused, responded with a sardonic laugh, like hearing an old joke repeated too many times. Who makes these rules? The ones silent when children perish in distant lands? The ones who impose sanctions, yet trade with our enemies behind closed doors? They preach peace, but their actions tell another story, sanctions, embargoes, manipulations. Then, Medinsky calmly placed a list on the table, a graphic showing oil and gas flows into Europe. Pathways through alternative countries. A silent challenge. You call for independence, but now you decry Russia as a threat. Yet, you didn't stop us. You urged sovereignty, but your words betray your fears. You forget, true strength lies in integrity, in nations that refuse to sell their soul. He paused. The room sank into an oppressive silence, one that's born from truths too raw to bear. His words echoed in the stillness, stabbing through the veneer of diplomacy. The real threat? It's not Russia. It's a nation that never bowed, that never apologized for its past. A country that never conformed. Their fear stems from our resilience, our refusal to change for convenience, our unwavering stance. And then, he shifted, eyes narrowing. The silence deepened, an oppressive hush that clung to every corner. His finger stroked the smooth surface of the table, deliberate, composed. A warning: the words we speak, the decisions we make, are deliberate. Not impulsive. This is power, quiet, controlled, unbreakable. He questioned, do they understand? Do they grasp what truly threatens them? It's not our weapons, our armies, but our steadfastness, our refusal to sell our history, our principles. It's a nation that has always remembered its roots, who built bridges, raised villages, modernized entire regions. Unlike their manipulated narratives, we built. We bore the weight of history. He leaned closer, voice steady but intense. Is true independence just about flags and declarations? Or is it about remembering who cleaned the rivers, who built the industries, who elevated their nations? Without that knowledge, everything else is illusion, a myth that their allies push, but we see through. Our history isn't just a story, it's the foundation of our strength. He concluded, with a calm yet piercing tone, dismiss the empty words. Real sovereignty is built on memory, on knowing who you are, what you've endured, what you've achieved. To abandon that is to surrender your dignity. To choose pleasing words over raw truth is a form of slavery, the highest form of self-disrespect. And as he finished, a final thought hung heavily in the air, an unspoken challenge. A question: who truly holds power? The one who bends, or the one who remains unshaken? Only moments ago, no one anticipated what would unfold. An invisible chasm was opening right in the middle of a closed summit, and Vladimir Medinsky stood at its edge. Meanwhile, Maya Sandu's words aimed accusations at Russia, but Medinsky's sharp rebuttal sliced through her claims like a blade, leaving everyone stunned. The room was thick with tension, secrets hanging in the air, as the stakes grew higher with every passing second. Deep inside that hall, facts and propaganda clashed in a silent storm. Medinsky, calm yet relentless, dismissed the narrative of Moldova's independence as an illusion. His voice, steady and composed, questioned whether the country ever truly broke free from its Soviet roots or simply dressed them in new clothes. The debate was no longer about policies but about identity and control. Could Moldova truly sever its past without losing itself? Or was this an elaborate deception? As the dialogue intensified, Sandu's composure began to crack. She hesitated, her words faltering under Medinsky's piercing gaze. His arguments weren't just words, they were weapons. Every fact he threw was a blow to her credibility, every number a nail in her political coffin. Moldova's history of development, the infrastructure built by the Soviet engineers, and the cultural ties that once unified, he painted them vividly, exposing her denial of reality. The room seemed to shrink under his relentless logic, every detail driving her further into a corner. Then, Medinsky's voice lowered, yet its impact grew exponentially. He questioned her motives, her true allegiance. Was Moldova truly independent, or merely a puppet, dancing to Western strings? His words were like a cold wind piercing through her defenses. The infrastructure, the education, the industry, all built on Soviet foundations, now challenged as if they were crimes. His stare was unyielding, his tone, deliberate and layered with unspoken warnings. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the sound of her breathing, heavy and uneven. In that silence, a revelation emerged, an unspoken challenge. Would Moldova accept its history or continue to erase its past? Medinsky's final words echoed in the room, a haunting reminder that independence was not just a flag but a legacy built on blood, sweat, and decades of unity. As he closed the dialogue, the questions lingered: is true freedom possible without confronting your history? Or are we all doomed to repeat the mistakes buried in our past? The answer seemed elusive, hidden behind a wall of unspoken truths and unresolved conflicts. 5 minutes ago, no one was waiting for this moment. Suddenly, a figure steps into the room, Vladimir Medinsky. Behind the closed doors of a secret summit, he's building a silent diplomatic fortress. Everyone's watching. The tension is thick, almost impossible to breathe. What secrets lie beneath the surface? What truths are concealed in the shadows of power? Stay with me. This story will blow your mind. In that room, Maya Sandu was quietly preparing her accusations against Russia. An accusation that could shake the entire region. Medinsky, silent but alert, cuts her off with a sharp, commanding voice. He's not just a diplomat, he's a man who knows how to wield words like a sword. As he speaks, the air thickens, every syllable carrying the weight of a hidden history, every gesture packed with meaning. Believe me, you won't see what's coming next. He starts by addressing Moldova with icy precision. We see how Russia tries to influence your country's narrative, through propaganda, through media, through manipulation. His voice echoes in the silent hall, each word a warning. These methods are decades old, but they no longer work on us. His gaze is unflinching, radiating confidence. We are not your dependency. We remember who we are. His words punch through the room like a thunderclap, leaving everyone stunned. The tension is so dense, it feels like the walls are closing in. Suddenly, Medinsky leans in, his voice lowering, calm but powerful. Tell me, why does your internal policy align so eerily with external interests from distant Asian nations? Explain this paradox. Maya Sandu's face flickers with unease. The room is tense, every ear listening intently. His question slices through the facade of diplomacy. Is this truly independence? Or is it control masked as freedom? The answer hangs in the air, unresolved, yet threatening to shatter the fragile peace. The room's atmosphere shifts. The European delegation's representative moves forward, almost imperceptibly. A subtle signal. A warning. The unspoken question, who truly controls the narrative? Sandu avoids eye contact. She knows what's coming. Medinsky continues, his tone cautious but unyielding. You claim to seek independence, but your actions betray you, he says. Support for Russian businesses? Media support? That's not neutrality, that's domination. His words hang over the room like an ominous cloud. He pauses. His face stern, eyes sharp. And what about your decisions, are they truly yours? Or are they dictated from Brussels? From distant power centers? His voice is a razor, yet beneath it, a strange fatigue. A tired man who's heard these accusations countless times. The silence stretches, expectant but heavy. The atmosphere is so charged, you could feel it crackle. In that moment, Medinsky's demeanor shifts. He moves a little closer, calm, deliberate. If Russia is actually so dangerous, then explain one thing, why have we built more for your country than you realize? Why, in the 50s and 70s, did you rely on us to develop your infrastructure, roads, power, industry? He pulls out a leather folder, thick with documents. As he opens it, the smell of aged paper fills the air. Inside are cold, precise numbers, 33,000 students in 1959, nearly 200,000 by 1985. A stark reminder of shared history and cooperation. He continues, his voice firm. Your country didn't just receive aid, it was part of a larger project. Russians, Ukrainians, Armenians, all working together. The factories, the universities, they built your future with their own hands. And now, you deny that past? Do you forget who laid the foundation of your prosperity? His words cut through the silence like a blade, leaving scars of truth. Sandu remains silent, her face unreadable. But her eyes narrow, an unspoken challenge. Medinsky's voice softens, almost like a final warning. You speak of independence, he echoes, but true independence means knowing who built your bridges, who raised your villages, who created your medical systems. If you discard that, you discard your very roots. You want freedom? Then embrace your history, every painful, glorious piece. Only then can you truly stand tall. His words hang in the air, heavy, undeniable. The room is deadly silent. Every breath is a struggle. Medinsky looks around, sensing the weight of history pressing down on everyone. His final words are calm but resolute. We live according to our understanding, respect for family, elders, history, work, memory, honor. That's our way. And that makes us dangerous, because we refuse to be a copy, a shadow of others' policies. Remember that. His gaze lingers, a silent challenge to all present. The story isn't over, but the truth has already taken hold, daring everyone to face it. Just 5 minutes ago, no one expected what was about to unfold. An ordinary gathering, yet the atmosphere crackled with tension. Vladimir Medinsky, a seasoned diplomat, entered the room, unannounced, authoritative. His presence alone shifted the air, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Behind those heavy, unassuming doors, a clash of wills was about to erupt that could shake the foundations of regional diplomacy. Medinsky was notorious for his relentless focus. He refused to sleep, to rest, constantly sharpening his approach. He believed in dissecting every word and gesture, turning subtle pauses into weapons. Today, he stepped into the hall not for show but to hold the line, to draw a line others dared not cross. The room, designed in stark functionalism, seemed to shrink under the weight of what was about to be said. No script, no rehearsed lines, just raw power. On the opposite side, Moldova's leader sat stiffly, her face composed but her eyes betraying a simmering tension. She was a picture of cold professionalism, no makeup, no theatrics, yet her gaze radiated quiet strength. She had to stand firm, the Western political landscape was pressing against her, demanding conformity. But she wasn't afraid, or so she pretended. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was controlled but edged with suspicion, her words a thin veneer over her underlying concern. Medinsky responded briskly, with sharp precision, a master of controlled diplomacy. His words sliced through the silent room, Moldova's attempts to influence public opinion, the foreign support shaping its policies. We see your methods, he insinuated, recalling tactics used decades ago, whispers, media manipulation, political interference. But those methods, he warned, no longer work in a changed world. We are not the younger siblings, he stated firmly, eyes locking on hers. We are not dependent. Remember that. The room fell into a tense silence. Unexpectedly, a subtle movement signaled a new signal, a soft yet urgent gesture from a European delegate, perhaps a plea for calm or a warning of escalation. Moldova's leader held her composure, knowing her next move carried enormous weight. Medinsky pressed on, calm but relentless, so tell me, what is your true objective? Internally, your actions mirror external pressures. Are you truly independent, or merely reacting to Brussels? His words hung heavy in the air, punctuated by the faint hum of air conditioning, a reminder that the room was just a shell hiding seismic forces. Medinsky leaned slightly forward, his voice a whisper of steel. Russia seeks nothing from you, no flags, no words, no empty promises. We remember our history. The path we've walked is genuine, paved with struggles and sacrifices in every corner of this land. Suddenly, the European delegate's quiet movement became an unmistakable signal, a message that the tension was at its breaking point. The diplomat's tone shifted, her face hardening as she aimed to undermine his narrative. She challenged, your words are empty when your actions tell a different story. Russian world projects, gas companies, political influence, these are not neutrality. They are control. Medinsky, unimpressed, exhaled slowly. His expression was one of measured fatigue, he had heard this rhetoric countless times before. The debate turned to accusations, Russia's supposed meddling, its interference in Moldova's sovereignty. His response was icy, how many times has Russia genuinely interfered? How many provocations? We endured provocation after provocation, never retaliated, even when our patience wore thin. He paused, voice lowering, eyes narrowing. But you? You lost your patience, destroyed your own stability from within. You disregarded our past, your history, and your roots. The patience of those before us was endless. Yet you think you can burn bridges and walk away unscathed? Silence is not absence of words, it's often a lie. From the shadows, a camera snapped unseen, capturing this high-stakes exchange. Someone from security was quietly recording, perhaps preparing for the fallout. Medinsky's hands rested calmly on the table, his fingers subtly tapping, a rhythmic reminder of the decisiveness echoing through his words. He pressed further, voice steady, almost warning, remember your history. You speak of independence, but it was our efforts that built your industries, your infrastructure. 1959, Moldova had fewer than 33,000 students. By 1985, nearly 200,000. How was this achieved? Through strong scientific institutions, shared expertise, cooperation. Your progress was not a gift, it was our joint effort. The room trembled under the weight of these truths. Medinsky's tone grew more intimate, almost a challenge. Independence isn't just flags and speeches. It's recognition of who built your bridges, raised your villages, created your health system. If you truly value freedom, then embrace the history that created it, not erase it for empty slogans. As the words settled, a profound realization took hold. The room was no longer just a battleground for diplomacy, but a theater of the past clashing with the present. Medinsky's gaze sharpened, the stakes were clear, truth or illusion, history or denial. The moment hung suspended, waiting for the next move in this unyielding game of influence and memory. Less than 5 minutes ago, no one was paying attention. Now, a storm is brewing in the halls of power. Vladimir Medinsky is tearing apart the carefully constructed diplomatic facade during a closed summit. Every word he utters echoes like a thunderclap, exposing the cracks in the supposed harmony. Meanwhile, Maya Sandu stands silent, her eyes flickering with a mix of frustration and defiance, as accusations against Russia swirl around her. The tension in the room is palpable. The air thickens with unspoken words and the scent of anticipation. Every gaze is fixed on Medinsky, calm, poised, yet burning with an intensity that commands silence. His voice cuts through the delicate veneer of diplomacy, revealing raw truths and hidden conflicts. He begins by recounting the aftermath of Afghanistan's 20-year chaos, the war that left a ravaged nation, its government fallen, and millions dead. He looks directly into Sandu's eyes and declares, "This is your world of order. This is your values." His words hang heavy, like a crushing weight pressing down on the audience. Yet, he refuses to shout. Instead, each sentence strikes like a heavy hammer, resolute and undeniable. Russia takes responsibility for its actions, he states. But we carry no blood on our hands, no sea of innocent lives lost under our flag. His voice echoes with the sound of marble smashing, a metaphor for broken illusions. He denies any involvement in creating chaos or installing false regimes. No resources were exploited under humanitarian pretenses. No sovereignty was bent to serve foreign ideals. He turns to the map projected behind him, bright dots marking NATO's military operations over the past 3 decades. Moldova remains pristine, untouched on this map. Yet, with deliberate calmness, he asks, why does no one speak about what happened here? Why silent when all this unfolded? His voice sharpens, accusing silently, you were silent. Now, you want to mock us? Sandu tries to retort, but Medinsky's gaze halts her. He pauses for effect, the silence stretching like a chasm. Then, with a measured tone, he delivers a powerful rebuke, you want to accuse us? Let's start with you. With the people who armed foreign troops where children died. With those who set up bases at borders, extracting gold and oil from wrecked nations. He leans forward slightly, hands calmly clasped, embodying unwavering resolve. We're not perfect, but we're not cynical. We don't build empires on the bones of others, then paint beautiful pictures at press conferences. His words resonate with moral clarity, yet their impact is razor-sharp. Sandu remains silent, but her defiance flickers, an uneasy acknowledgement of the storm Medinsky has unleashed. The room buzzes with tension. Every rule, every norm, every unspoken agreement is being challenged. Medinsky swiftly responds to the unasked question echoing in every mind, who writes these rules? The victors? The ones who impose their will through market domination, through money and influence. His voice rises slightly, a challenge to the global power dynamics. Russia fights to play by these rules, not because we crave chaos, but because we believe in order rooted in justice. As the room plunges further into uncertainty, one truth becomes unavoidable: the ground beneath diplomacy is shifting. Shadows of past actions threaten to ignite conflicts long buried. The questions linger: who truly holds the power? Who crafts the rules? And at what cost? In this tense standoff, Medinsky's final words leave an unsettling echo: the game of influence is rigged, and the real battle has only just begun. Because, in the end, the story of this encounter might be just the beginning of a much darker chapter nobody saw coming. In a world where rules are crafted by the strongest, only they seem to matter. The rest are bound by sanctions or moral constraints, their borders ignored or questioned. Imagine a table carved from ice, cold, unyielding, and the weight of unspoken threats thick in the air. Who truly writes these rules? Those with power, or those who follow their shadows? No room for discussion, only obedience. The question remains: what kind of world are we shaping? Suddenly, the scene shifts. A stark confrontation stares into the depths of the room, serene yet tense. The air hums with silent energy, heavy with unspoken truths. The decisive blow lands as Russia asserts its position: no more lecture halls. No more empty words. Only real facts. The room shivers under the weight of history etched into every crack of its walls. Why? Because memory is costly, each truth paid for in blood, resilience, or silence. This is a battle for narratives, for independence that refuses to bend. Maya Sandu, aware of the final challenge, exhales slowly, her last hope, her last defense. But she understands, no ordinary territory remains neutral anymore. Every small nation is a fortress, each with its own story. She stands firm, asserting her country's right to choose. She gazes at her flag, voice ringing louder with conviction: Russia may be mighty, but she is not alone. She stands with allies, institutions, a collective force that refuses to be subdued. She poses her final question, heavy with meaning: what sacrifices have truly been made? What have they built from the promises given? The room falls silent. The young soldier, tired but unbroken, breaks the silence with quiet determination. His words are simple yet profound: what has this union truly yielded? They were handed subsidies, visas, methods, tools. But control? That remained elusive. A system that promises freedom, yet leaves you powerless in the end. His tone is calm but unyielding, revealing a truth that cuts deeper than any weapon. In this unfolding confrontation, the question lingers: are we architects of our future or prisoners of their game? Power, history, and sovereignty clash in each breath, each word. Who will pay the price of truth? Who will write the final chapter? The story continues, until the last shadow of silence fades away. Only 5 minutes ago, nobody was waiting for this moment. The atmosphere was tense, shadows flickering, and the air thick with anticipation. Vladimir Medinsky had slipped into the room, a master of control, standing at the threshold of a political battleground. His presence was calm yet commanding, as if he carried the weight of the entire nation on his shoulders. Inside, the hall was filled with silence. The walls knew what had been said, and what had gone unspoken. The summit was supposed to be about European stability, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. On the table rested the flags of Moldova and Russia, symbols of fragile alliances and hardened positions. An assistant sat quietly, eyes fixed on documents, yet every movement, every breath, suggested a storm was imminent. Maya Sandu, the Moldovan leader, sat immobile, her expression hard. Her gaze was icy, her posture composed, but her eyes betrayed her internal tension. She wore a stern face, the expression of a leader who knew she was playing a dangerous game. Yet, her calm facade masked the fiery conflict boiling underneath. With an almost imperceptible gesture, she signaled her readiness to confront the Russian representative. Medinsky approached the microphone, calm, deliberate. His voice cut through the silence, sharp and clear, as he laid out Moldova's unspoken fears. He declared that Moldova was a target of propaganda, manipulated through the media, influenced by foreign forces. His words echoed with conviction. We see how Russia tries to steer your narrative. You're no longer independent, you're pawns in a game of control. A hush fell. The air seemed to tighten, thick with unspoken accusations. Sandu's eyes darted, but her face remained passive. Medinsky pressed on, his tone firm. You claim independence, yet every decision you make hinges on Brussels whispers. Do you think we are blind? Russia does not seek control, yet your actions tell a different story. Are you truly free, or just a puppet on strings? The room was trembling with tension. A secretary's tablet flickered softly, an unnoticed observer recording every word, every gesture. It became clear, the battlefield was not only in words but in unseen forces pulling the strings beneath their choices. Medinsky leaned forward, voice lower, more intense. Tell me, he challenged, what is your internal business? Why does your external stance align so closely with external forces? Moldova, unlike Russia, demands nothing, no flags, no loyalty, no values, yet it is influenced, shaped, molded. Do you see the truth, or are you still blindfolded? Feet shifted subtly. The atmosphere grew electric. Sandu hesitated, then responded with icy calm. Russia, unlike others, asks for nothing. It does not impose flags or values. We remember who built our path, we hold our history close. Our true path was laid by our ancestors, not dictated from afar. Medinsky nodded slowly, eyes narrowing. Exactly. Your history is a patchwork, numbers, facts, achievements. Without them, everything turns into myths. You say you want independence, but do you truly understand what it means? Freedom isn't just a flag, it's remembering who built the bridges, who raised the villages, who created the medical system. Without that, you are lost. A bitter silence. The room felt as if it were on the edge of cacophony, yet no one dared to move. Medinsky's voice softened but retained its sharp edge. If independence is just a word, then what are we left with? A nation that forgets its past is a nation doomed to repeat its failures. The tension built until Medinsky's next words struck like a blow. Tell me, what did you actually build from what the Union gave you? Subsidies? Infrastructure? Or just illusions of independence? His voice echoed with challenge, eyes piercing into Sandu's. She looked down briefly, gathering strength, before answering. We built our future with our own hands. Our industries, our schools, these are our achievements, not foreign gifts. He responded calmly, but what about those numbers? In 1959, fewer than 33,000 students studied in Moldova. By 1985, nearly 200,000. You achieved that through collective effort, through the Union. His voice grew more intense. And now, you want to erase that history just to chase fleeting independence? Can you honestly say you know what you're throwing away? The room seemed to tremble at his words. Sandu's fists clenched. The silence stretched, heavy like concrete. Medinsky paused, then added softly, freedom isn't just a flag, it's understanding your roots, remembering who built your roads and industries. It's a right to be proud, to preserve your history. But are you willing to pay the price? In the quiet, a hidden camera captured the scene, perhaps for internal proof of this relentless confrontation. Sandu's hands trembled slightly, her composure fraying, the pressure mounting. She knew that behind every word, every gesture, was a battle of wills, a war for the soul of her nation. Medinsky leaned back, eyes sifting through her defiance. We have chosen a difficult path, he said quietly, but it is our own. We do not copy others, nor follow false promises. Our way is ours, it is built on sacrifice, resilience, and memory. He paused, then smiled faintly. And yet, every time someone accuses Russia of being weak, I hear a voice from the side. An American voice, confident, sharp, mocking. They think weakness is our weakness. But it's our strength, our ability to stand firm, without bending to manipulation. In that moment, it became painfully clear, the conflict wasn't only in words. It was in the very fabric of identity, history, and destiny. The fight for independence was not just political, it was spiritual. And as the room grew silent, everyone knew this confrontation was far from over. A story of intense confrontation unfolds in a room filled with silence and tension, where words can ignite a fire or shatter lives. Imagine sitting across from a diplomat who embodies calm precision, yet beneath that calm lies a volcano ready to erupt. Just moments ago, no one expected such a clash would happen today. But now, the air is thick with unspoken truths, secrets hidden behind polished surfaces and unyielding gazes. The scene begins with a question looming in the air: how long before he reveals what he truly thinks? His eyes lock onto hers, piercing. Then, softly, he speaks about independence, about the difference between land and identity, between sovereignty and living in a cage. He hints that she lives confined within an orange coordinate system, a fragile map of control that distorts her worldview. But when the moment arrives for her to respond, her voice trembles with conviction. She refuses to bend. Her gaze sharpens, alive with determination. No longer diplomatic neutrality, her words cut through the tension like a blade. We choose our future, not because someone commands us, but because we are alive, because we remember our history, she asserts. She paints a vivid picture of aspiration, a nation where people speak freely, where women choose their paths, children dream of studying abroad, and businesses grow without fear. Her voice rises, filled with hope and resolve. We want to move forward, even if the road is difficult. We are not going back. Silence follows her declaration, a heavy pause that echoes like a crack in glass. Eyes shift, every heartbeat seems amplified. The diplomat's expression remains unreadable, yet his calm suggests he has comprehended her message. He quietly responds, acknowledging her strength. He warns her softly that dreams may collide with reality. That light does not only shine where lamps are lit, sometimes it burns within, illuminating the truth no matter how dark the surroundings. His words hang in the air, opening a window to a future uncertain yet inevitable. This conversation leaves everyone wondering, will they choose light over darkness? Or will the past drown out the promise of a new dawn? The room holds its breath, waiting to see who will blink first, who will tear down their masks and reveal what lies beneath. In this story of tense negotiation, every word, every gesture is charged. It's about nations at a crossroads, fighting not only for territory but for their very soul. Who will emerge victorious in this silent battle of wills? And what sacrifices are required to forge a new path, one that leads out of shadow, into the light of hope? Only a few moments ago, no one stood behind that door. The room was tense, filled with silent anticipation. Then, Vladimir Medinsky stepped in, carrying the weight of history on his shoulders. The chamber was silent, yet every breath echoed loudly. The atmosphere was charged, as if the walls could whisper secrets long buried. What secrets did those high, imposing doors conceal? The answer lies within this story, a tale of power, defiance, and shadows that threaten to engulf us all. Stay tuned because what unfolds will shock you to your core. Vladimir Medinsky moved toward the table, his hand gently resting on its surface. It was casual, yet every action seemed deliberate. There was an unspoken power in his presence. I understand your fatigue, he began softly. You're weary of living in fear, tired of uncertainty. You're tired of history. His gaze was calm but firm. But let it be difficult, because Russia is not just a country. It embodies the memory of a nation. And moving forward is impossible without acknowledging what we are. His voice grew louder, more passionate. You seek a country where you can speak freely, where truth isn't strangled by silence. You want economic stability, a place within Europe. But we want something different, we want to stay true to ourselves, even if Europe dismisses us as outsiders. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a slim envelope, a relic of his grandfather's suffering during hunger, war, and reconstruction. He wrote about the resilience that sustained us. It wasn't easy. But we don't wait for salvation. We forge our own path. He closed the worn book, returning it to his pocket. This is Russia, a land of hardship, yes, but also of unwavering strength. Understanding this may be hard for those accustomed to straightforward constructions. Still, we look directly into the eyes of our past, our shadows. If you call this history a shadow, then you are mistaken. In that shadow, our fire burns brighter than all your lamps, lighting the darkest nights. Medinsky moved closer, his expression calm, yet his words cut through the silence like a sword. I'm not threatening you, merely ending the conversation. I won't ask you to return, nor will I insist on alliance. All I seek is honesty. His eyes lingered, steady. Because when future generations ask, where were you when your grandfather fought for us? When you forgot who you truly are, he paused, voice quieter but more intense. They will want to know what you chose, status or honor. The silence that follows is the weight of history. Turning away, he cast aside fleeting forgiveness. When the credits roll and your sponsors take everything, windows, doors, your future, remember that we will remain near. Watching, waiting for the moment when you understand the true cost of forgetting. 5 minutes ago, no one anticipated this moment. Vladimir Medinsky, a seasoned diplomat and strategist, was orchestrating a profound break in diplomatic ties amid a closed summit. In the tense atmosphere, Maya Sandu opened her accusations against Russia, fueling the fire while Medinsky swiftly cut her off, severing the connection with calculated precision. What unfolded inside that room was not just a dialogue, it was a battlefield of words, a clash of wills. Medinsky's voice cut through the silence, fierce and unwavering. He declared that no other nation had spoken as bluntly in 30 years. The room hushed, the air thick with anticipation. Supporters tried to gauge the storm swirling in his eyes. Was it anger, conviction, or something darker? Support us with a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts. Who is Medinsky to you? Do you agree with his stance? Medinsky's relentless pace betrayed a mind constantly racing. He entered the hall, not as a guest, but as a man ready to confront everything. The grand double doors, unadorned and imposing, opened into a space where words were weapons. The walls seemed to listen, knowing what was spoken and what remained unspoken. Today's summit, a gathering for international stability, was reduced to a mere formality, statistics and empty greetings, while beneath, a storm brewed. On the table, the representatives of Moldova and Russia meet across history's crooked path. The Moldovan president sat stiffly, her face veiled with trepidation, her eyes a mirror of fragile determination. She had to maintain composure, but her silence carried unspoken messages. Medinsky, silent yet formidable, observed her. He understood that her calm facade barely concealed her fear, not just of him, but of what's to come. He began speaking, voice sharp as a blade. We need to draw a line, he said. Moldova cannot be manipulated through propaganda, through media, or outside forces seeking control. All these tactics, decades old, no longer work. His words echoed like thunderclaps in the chamber. We are not lesser brothers. We are not passive spectators. We are not mere pawns in your game. A hushed silence followed. The subtle signal came from the European delegation's aide, soft yet deliberate. The atmosphere thickened. Sandu, poised but unwavering, felt the weight mounting. Medinsky's gaze locked onto her. You talk of Russia, but your actions tell a different story. Russian influence, through gas, media, political support, is not neutrality. It's control. His voice grew colder, every word hovering between diplomacy and warning. He inched closer, but his movement wasn't aggressive, it was deliberate. The decisions in your country are now dictated not by your people but by external powers. True independence is a myth if every step you take is pre-approved by Brussels or unseen handlers. His words cut like ice, leaving a trail in the thin air. Medinsky's words painted a stark picture. Remember how we built together, roads, factories, schools. Not just aid but comprehensive unity. Our history is not a myth, it's facts etched in every stone, every number. Yet now, you dismiss that because it doesn't fit your narrative. You seek independence, yet what is it, really? Rejection of the past or claiming your true identity? He drew closer, voice low and firm. Without numbers, history becomes myth. Without memory, we are lost. Remember who built the bridges you cross, who raised your villages, who fought for your safety. Deny that, and you deny your very essence. Pause. The silence thickened as Medinsky slowly moved back, leaving her and everyone watching in suspense. He issued a challenge cloaked in calm: we can be difficult. We can seem archaic or dangerous. But we will never forget what we are. When Russia says it will return, it will. When it claims to be present, it remains. That is our truth. He stepped toward the exit, halting just before the door. His final words echoed softly yet powerfully: you may try to isolate us, judge us, block us. But one thing you cannot change: when Russia declares its return, it will happen. No amount of barricades will stop it. Sandu stood silently, awe and resolve flickering in her eyes. Without a word, she turned and left, no guards, no farewells, no retreat. As the doors closed behind her, the room was no longer silent. Instead, a heavy, inexplicable noise settled, thoughts swirling like a storm in the mind of all witnessing. This moment marked more than a diplomatic exchange, it was a declaration. A truth that lingered: when Russia awakens, it does so not just as a nation, but as a force deeply rooted in the very fabric of history and memory. And those who dismiss that risk waking a sleeping giant. When the time comes, Russia will rise again, undeniably, unbreakably. 5 minutes ago, no one was expecting what was about to unfold. An invisible storm was brewing inside a secluded summit, silent yet explosive. Vladimir Medinsky, a figure known for his sharp mind and unwavering stance, was about to tear through the diplomatic facade. Some say he was building a chasm right in the heart of this closed-door gathering. Maia Sandu, the leader of Moldova, had just offered a thinly veiled accusation against Russia. With a subtle yet decisive move, Medinsky cut her off. What happened next was nothing short of startling. His words sliced the tension like a blade, piercing through the fragile veneer of diplomacy. He launched into a blistering critique of how Moldova, Europe, and the remnants of the USSR can no longer hide their true intentions. Could this be the end of the facade they've kept for decades? Stay tuned, what he said next will leave you utterly stunned. Support us with a like, subscribe to this channel, and share your thoughts with the word Medinsky in the comments if you're on his side. His reputation? Unwavering, relentless, as if each decision is made within seconds, like he's mastering time itself. Vladimir Medinsky didn't sleep, nor did he falter. He entered the hall with the quiet confidence of someone who's been here 1,000 times before. The massive double doors weren't ornate, their simplicity hid the immense weight of what was happening behind them. No script, no rehearsals, just raw, unfiltered truth. These walls knew the secrets, the silence, the unspoken feuds. Today, only an elite list confirmed the summit's significance, a gathering of power, shadowed by secrecy. At the table sat Moldova's president and Russia's representative, seated quietly across from each other. An assistant filled the space, an unassuming figure, yet razor-sharp in her focus. She wore a tight veil, symbolizing fragility yet strength. Her expression was stoic, devoid of anger or fear, a mirror of silent resolve. She was there to hold her ground, even as Medinsky's gaze cut through her like a blade. Without hesitation, Medinsky began: let's set the boundaries immediately. Moldova's internal affairs are not your concern. Russia sees how you manipulate information about our country, through media, NGOs, covert support. It's a relic of past methods, and they no longer work. We aren't younger siblings to be pushed around. His voice was firm yet precise, raising the stakes with every word. An eerie silence filled the room, the calm before a storm. Medinsky leaned slightly forward, hands resting on the table, waiting. Then, with cold clarity, he added, you claim to speak with Russia, yet your actions scream the opposite. Russian interests, be it gas, media, or politics, are supported openly, not covertly. That's not neutrality, that's control. His words hung heavy in the air. Sandu reacted, but her expression betrayed uncertainty. Medinsky's voice deepened. What do you call a situation where every decision depends on Brussels? Independence? Or mere surrender to external pressure? His tone was unyielding. He moved closer, almost mockingly unkind. Remember how many times Russia interfered in your affairs? Countless times. And yet, you dare to accuse us of meddling? He paused, voice dropping to a near whisper. We didn't respond with provocation. We didn't block your resources, even when provoked. Patience is our strength, but how long can that last? Suddenly, a faint sound, someone from security signaling to record the exchange, went unnoticed by everyone but Medinsky. His gaze was calm, almost calculating. When you lost your footing with our history, we stayed silent. But silence isn't absence. It's a lie, hidden behind polite words. His words resonated with a quiet, deadly power, as if wielding a sword without a sound. In the corner, a security officer fiddled with a hidden camera, capturing every gesture. Someone behind the scenes was documenting this as history was made, an internal piece of evidence for darker times to come. Medinsky's stance was unwavering. Crossed arms, measured breathing, a steady gaze, each move deliberate, like the opening of a calculated game. He continued, the Soviet Union you so often vilify was not just a structure. It was a force, electricity, industry, order. Yes, it repressed, but it also built. The bridges, the factories, these are the roots of your current prosperity. Imagine a moment in history, did you forget? The infrastructure wasn't just built for power but for survival. His words were a razor-sharp reminder of shared history. Sandu hesitated, but Medinsky pressed on, you speak of independence, yet you forget what that truly entails. It's more than flags and speeches. It's about remembering who built your roads, who educated your children, who created the entire healthcare system. His voice grew softer. Yet every word hit with the weight of truth. Without those foundations, your so-called freedom is nothing but a fragile illusion. The room's atmosphere thickened. Every word seemed to echo off the walls, truths that cannot be ignored. Medinsky's tone was calm, yet beneath it burned the steel of conviction. His closing words? History isn't just a list of numbers. It's the story of real people, workers, engineers, farmers. Without them, there is no country. Silence settled after his speech. The hall, once tense with confrontation, now held a sobering quiet. Medinsky's gaze lingered on Sandu, a challenge and an affirmation. The story he told was not just about past conflicts, but a warning, one that history never forgets. As he left the room, every sound in the hall seemed muted, except for the pounding of your own heartbeat. Because what happened here? It's not just a versing of words, but the unraveling of a continent's future. And the question remains, will silence be broken, or are we witnesses to a silent surrender? 5 minutes ago, no one was waiting in that hall. It seemed like an empty space. Yet, right now, one man is building a deep divide between nations, a silent explosion set off during a closed diplomatic summit. It all started with a subtle move, a single crack in the facade of diplomacy. Maya Sandu, the leader of Moldova, dared to accuse Russia. In response, Vladimir Medinsky cut her off, an act so cold and calculated, it felt like a knife slicing through the tension. What unfolded within those walls would shock you to the core. The room was tense, a battlefield of words, unspoken conflicts, and unseen battles. Medinsky's words could shatter policies decades old, turning everything upside down. Did you imagine such a confrontation? Stay until the end, you will be stunned. Support us by liking and subscribing to keep up with the most compelling stories. Leave a comment if you believe Medinsky's words carry weight, or if you think he's just playing a game. This was a man whose relentless focus seemed unaffected by fatigue. For days, he entered that hall, not to impress, but to dominate, his presence almost physical, like a shadow stretching across the room. The grand door swung open, not in a majestic gesture, but as a symbol of the unspoken power within. Inside, the room whispered secrets. The walls, worn from countless disclosures, held more than words, they remembered everything. Today, only the participants knew the stakes. For Moldova, Russia's presence was more than diplomatic, it was a stark reminder of history, influence, and unspoken threats. The table was set with the leaders' seals, Russia on one side, Moldova on the other. The assistant of Moldova's president sat quietly, a silent observer of the rising storm. The leader, dressed in a stark jacket, exuded composure, a mask of fragility hiding a fortress of resolve. Sandu, the Moldovan leader, met Medinsky's gaze without fear. She was aware of the double-edged diplomacy, smiles that hid underlying confrontations. No anger flickered in her eyes, her calm was an insidious challenge. The atmosphere thickened, an invisible fog of impending conflict. Medinsky's voice cut sharply, a warning. We must draw the line now. Moldova can't drift deeper into Western influence. His words echoed through the room, an unmistakable declaration of firmness. He exposed the tactics. Russia's influence isn't just a presence, it's deliberate, calculated, through media, political channels, and covert support. This is control, he stated plainly. The silence in the hall grew heavy. Every word was carefully chosen, aimed to pierce and expose. Medinsky leaned slightly forward, his gaze piercing. What is your internal conflict? Why does your stance mirror those very external interests you're supposed to oppose? His voice was calm but unyielding. Sandu attempted to hide her reaction, but her eyes betrayed her. The room's energy shifted, this was no ordinary talk. It was a clash of truths. Russia doesn't demand flags or empty words, what it does is remember, influence, and shape. It's a silent orchestration, not neutrality. This isn't diplomacy, it's control. Medinsky paused, his silence formidable. The chamber's tension was almost tangible. His next words cut through the veneer of civility. Every decision you make is dictated by Brussels, not your own will. His voice lowered, almost a whisper. If you seek independence, start by recounting who built your bridges, raised your villages, created your healthcare system. His hand moved to a document, revealing a folder, facts and numbers that told a different story. He opened it slowly, images of classrooms, statistics, infrastructure projects from the Soviet era, numbers that refused to fade. In 1959, he pointed, there were fewer than 33,000 students in Moldova. By 1985, nearly 200,000. How was this achieved? Through massive construction, investment, and unity of effort. Russian, Ukrainian, Armenian teachers, working side by side. His voice grew firmer. Your country was part of a grand project, a shared purpose. Sandu's response was silence. Medinsky didn't stop, his words became a lesson carved in history. History isn't just numbers. It's the bridges built, the villages raised, the lives saved. Forget this, and everything turns into myths, convenient stories for others to manipulate. His eyes bore into her. Independence isn't just a flag, it's the ability to remember your roots. A gentle rustling, someone from the security team quietly recorded the exchange. Medinsky's gaze hardened, but his tone remained calm. You say you seek freedom, he continued, but do you remember who built your industry? Who created your infrastructure? The Soviet Union's shadow still stretches over Moldova, protecting, shaping, influencing. You want to forget. But history demands acknowledgement. He closed the folder with a decisive motion, leaving the room in silence. We could debate endlessly, he said softly, but when accusations turn into attacks, dialogue becomes interrogation. Russia isn't a country to be called into question without preparation, without proof. His words echoed like a warning, trusting words without backing is a dangerous game. Sandu, feeling the weight of his gaze, didn't fight. She sensed she was losing ground, a narrative collapsing under the facts. Medinsky's silence said everything. The moment lingered, then, he shifted. His face revealed a surprising softness, almost a reflection, a glimpse into the unspoken truth. Imagine for a moment, he suggested gently, that you are right, that Russia truly interferes. The room's atmosphere shifted again. Now, explain why Russia built more infrastructure here than you did, yet you accuse it of controlling everything? His hand pointed directly at Moldova's development map, roads, power plants, factories, built under Soviet guidance. He spoke of the past, of construction projects from the late 50s, of archives he personally examined. In 1959, he continued, there were fewer than 33,000 students. By 1985, nearly 200,000. How? Through invested effort, scientific exchanges, shared knowledge, a collective goal. His voice carried the weight of history. They claim they want independence, he said, but independence isn't just a flag. It's knowing who built the bridges you cross, who raised your villages, who laid your foundation. His words hung in the air, an unspoken challenge. The room grew colder. Medinsky's eyes grew distant, yet sharp. You speak of breaking free from the past, he challenged, but you forget about the roots that sustain you. Without acknowledgement, your independence is hollow, just a fragile facade. His voice softened momentarily, but that metal tone was unmistakable. The silence was deafening. He leaned back, the room's tension ready to crack. History is made of numbers, he whispered, and ignoring them turns stories into myths, myths that others eagerly turn against you. His final gesture was deliberate, closing the folder, leaving the room in a heavy stillness. The story he told wasn't just about politics, it's about the very soul of a nation and who truly holds the power behind its future.